gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I'm your host, Adam Portros, and I'm joined by sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet.
You have a very strong spiritual pressure.
And the guy who brings all the pressure over here, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and my spiritual pressure is exceptionally high right now.
Oh, the PSI on that spiritual pressure, you better watch out, boy.
Man, it's got to be coming out at about 60 PSI.
Just imagine a 2-liter big red soda. You screw the top down real tight. You shake it up for 3 months. Then you take the top off while you're riding in a car on a bumpy road.
Oh.
That's going on right now.
Crack a window, why don't you? This week we're talking Bleach, everybody, and I'm not saying just the Bleach that people tell me to go drink on a regular basis. Oh no! This is an actual program on the Netflix, and we'll be talking about Bleach from 2018. But before we do all that, we do want to say a big giant thank you to everyone who helped support this show over at patreon.com/HMP. Those fine folks get the pre-show, the post-show, and, of course, the Dinger Zone, and we are in it right now, boys and girls. We finished up our Mission Impossible. We're bearing down on the Fast and Furious right now. This week we're talking Too Fast, Too Furious, the second movie with 2 number 2s in it. What do you think? Not too shabby. So we'll be doing all that. So check that out at patreon.com/HMP. And we do want to say a big thank you to the people who helped donate at the top levels this month. We would have said it last week, but the week, it wasn't the first of the month then. Now we're after the first of the month. So we do want to say a big thank you over the $20 level to Matthew, Alex, and Brian. And over at the big dog level, the biggest of the big boys, comes Derek and Tim up at the $40 level. Thank you guys very, very much. And thank you everyone who supports the show over at patreon.com/HMP. And we have to thank a new member of the Patreon family, Mr. Voss 451. You are now at the $5 level, and we'd like to welcome you to the table. And I think our friend Sean may have a little something for you, perhaps.
Well, I don't have a sports speech lined up because I blanked, but I do have a very good handle for your HMP name.
I'm going to put some extra reverb on it when you do it, so make it count. You know what I mean?
Okay.
All right.
So Voss, I don't have the numbers, but Mr. Voss, by the good people who invented the internet, I have been bestowed with the power to give you your nickname. Get ready for the reverb here.
Yep, we're on it.
Your name is Jordan 91.
Great year.
Jordan is Michael Jordan is insane in 91. 1991 Michael Jordan, it doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, well, there you go. Jordan 91. Can't beat that one.
Way better than White Sox Farm League Jordan, which was the second choice.
For sure.
You can't always get what you want, right, Jordan? But thank you. And if you would like your own Patreon nickname and support the show, get the Dinger Zone pre-show, post-show, all of that fun and funky stuff, do us a big, giant old favor. Head on down to patreon.com/HMP and, join up today, man. We really appreciate that. And all of you fine folks that do that. We do also want to head over real quick here because we talked about one last week. We'll do another one this week of our dingers, humdingers, little dingers here. Come on, damn it, load up. There we go. So this is a 5-star review on iTunes, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
This one comes to us from Super Mama Mixes. And it's entitled, I'm King Solomon's Frog. Starting to see a little bit of a pattern here. You may remember me from such reviews as I stole my daughter's iPad and Dr. Dan Doo doesn't live here anymore. This is easily my favorite podcast, so much that I take out other people's iPads and iPhones to write reviews. That is from Super Mama Mixes, or it's King Solomon's Frog. It doesn't really matter.
Thank you, KSF.
So if you, too, would like to steal your family, friends, neighbors, whomever, stranger on the street, just say, hey, can I do a quick call on your phone here real fast? Drop us that 5-star review. Let us know that you're doing that, too. We like seeing people break the law. It's fun. So we do that. We'd really appreciate that. And, Okay, boys, let's get on into it. This week, it was up to me to pick the programming with which we were to partake. Bleach from 2018. You know what time it is, everybody.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Bruce, I can't believe you're doing it again. What do you got for us this week?
Well, Bleach is the debut studio album by American rock band Nirvana. Released on June 15th, 1989 by Sub Pop Records. Bleach is also a 2001 manga written and drawn by Titi Kubo that follows the adventures of the hot-headed teenager Ichigo Kurosaki, who inherits his parents' destiny after he obtains the powers of a Soul Reaper. According to my limited research, the word used for Soul Reaper in the original language of the original manga is Shinigami, which is a word you guys have heard me mangle before because the only character you probably remember from Death Note is Ryuk, who is also a Shinigami. But the Shinigami we care about today are in Bleach, a series of stories about Ichigo, who might be the first human to become a Reaper, defending humans from evil spirits and guiding departed souls to the afterlife. The biggest question I have is, why is it called Bleach? Nothing about the story screams chlorine-based cleaning supplies to me. So let's see what I can figure out. Bleach was first conceived from Titi Kubo's desire to draw a Shinigami, which is a Soul Reaper, in a kimono, which formed the basis for the design of the Soul Reapers in the series. And I think that's a cool concept, but I don't think one commonly associates any of that concept with highly effective laundry additives. Now, at first, Kubo thought that the Soul Reaper should use guns, so the first title for the series was Snipe, as in sniper. However, this was changed with the inclusion of swords. And you guys may not know this, but I'm a bit of a sword guy myself, and I've never used bleach on a blade. Now, next, the series was meant to be named Black due to the color of the Soul Reaper's clothes, but Kubo thought that title was too generic. When I was growing up, I thought that bleach was just the generic word for Clorox, so I still kind of feel like Bleach isn't an overly on-brand kind of name. He later tried the name of White, because when black is too generic, I guess you switch to white. But then he came to like Bleach, more for its association with the color white, and that he did not find it too obvious. I agree, that is definitely not too obvious, Titi Kubo. Now, I get that. I think Bleach is appropriate in that sense, but I still don't exactly get why he landed on that, and that's absolutely okay. I don't need to get it. I can still absolutely respect its value just by knowing plenty of other people get it just fine. Kubo has cited influences for elements of Bleach ranging from other manga classic series to music, foreign language, architecture, and film. Kubo's enjoyment of manga centered around Greek mythology during his youth is a source for his focus on myths, monsters, and the afterlife. And the action style and storytelling found in Bleach is cited to be inspired by the cinema, though Kubo has not singled out any specific movie as being an influence for the fight scenes. But he did say that Bleach's fight choreography is constructed with the aid of rock music, which Kubo listens to while imagining the fight scenes in order to give him a sense of pacing for the panel cuts and change of angles through the scenes. Now, do you guys think maybe he listens to Nirvana? You think maybe the early days of the Seattle grunge scene are the real reason he called the manga Bleach? Kubo has said that he likes creating characters that have outward appearances that do not match their true nature, an element that can be found in many Bleach characters, as he is, and I quote, attracted to people with that seeming contradiction and finds an urge to draw people like that when he works. You know, maybe kind of like how the members of Nirvana sort of look like losers and nerds, but they were actually awesome rock stars. Just putting it out there, guys. You may not believe this, but whenever possible, I try to learn something when I'm putting these comic connections together. And I learned that Bleach's plot incorporates this traditional Japanese belief that I wasn't entirely familiar with, of spirits coexisting with humans, and that their nature, whether they're good or evil, actually depends on their circumstances and surroundings. An academic guy named Patrick Drazen said that this is a reminder to the audience to not abandon the old ways, or else you'll risk the spirits taking offense and causing problems in the world. If I can just make a quick non sequitur, some people ain't been praying because there's a whole lot going on. But Bleach also incorporates Shinto themes of purification of evil spirits through charms, scrolls, incantations, and other rituals. And I guess that's kind of like me lighting a match, after I go to the bathroom. And if we have any Shinto listeners, I just want to go ahead and sincerely apologize for that match lighting thing. I should really know better than that. I was wrong. I'm truly sorry. Back to Bleach. At least one critic considers Bleach as transmitting Confucian values. And don't worry, I have no insensitive Confucius comments to make. Though growing up, I'm pretty sure I heard all of them. A lot of smelly fingers and own pew and stuff like that. But a guy named Otto von Feigenblatt, and Otto von Feigenblatt is a real person and not just a ridiculous name I made up to cite something. Well, he describes Bleach as being culturally and religiously aware as it draws upon Christianity and Caribbean. How do you say that one?
I'm a Caribbean.
Okay, Caribbean Santeria. And as for me, Adam, I don't practice Santeria. But if I did, it would be sublime. Okay, von Feigenblatt also notes that the Quincy are clearly inspired by the Roman Catholic Christian orders of knighthood, such as the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre, whose influence is shown in terms of the uniform worn by the Quincy, as well as the symbolism of the cross. Rage Against the Machine said something about crosses and forces, but I can't quite remember what. And Bleach has sold over 90 million copies in Japan. It sold over 120 million copies in print worldwide as of 2018. Deb Aoki from About.com considered the series the best continuing manga of 2007, praising the compelling stories, dazzling action sequences, and great character development. IGN's A.E. Sparrow commented on the series' ability to handle multiple minor character plot lines at the same time, which he considered a point of appeal. But not everyone is all praise. A Mania reviewer named Jared Pine criticized the series as being plagued with stereotypes from the genre. He felt it was a rough start for the series with unimpressive battles, overused gags, and a bad introduction for central character Ichigo that causes him to come across as a frowning punk. Maybe a frowning punk like Chad Taylor, the guitarist and lead singer for Live, whose 1994 hit song Lightning Crashes still brings tears to my eyes every single time I hear it. So what is it I'm getting at here? Well, to tell the truth, I've never read the Bleach manga, but I really listened to a lot of music in the 90s.
I think Bruce you must have been listening to a lot of music lately, because Bruce, in these comic book connections, has been dropping more and more musical references all over the place. We had like the Smiths a couple weeks ago, and then we're throwing on all of these. Are you listening to a lot of music, Bruce?
It's as if I had nothing to do for a couple of months and watched all of Netflix.
Yeah, that'll happen.
And then started listening to music to pass the time, isn't it?
Well, here's the IMDb plotline. I love this because I get so much crap, and rightfully so, for not being able to read very well, but this is constructed fantastically. And you can look it up on IMDb. This is not me messing it up. This is how bad it was written. A Japanese teenager can see ghosts and sees a cute girl fighting an evil monster. Period. He ends up with her Reaper power as she is as human in his high school class. See, it's written so bad I can't even read it properly. He discovers a connection between his mom's death and these monsters. Like I said, at the end of last week's show, I was kind of looking for something to do because this week it was up to me to pick a film. So I was like, oh, let's see what we've got here. Flipping through Netflix. I was aware of Bleach because my brother is like an anime guy and stuff, and I know that he had watched the actual anime and stuff, so I was like, let's see what we got here. Watched about 15 seconds of the trailer, kind of looked interesting to me, scrolled through a couple of comments, saw that the comments were like, hey, this was a great flick, so I'm like, let's check it out. And so up until this, had you guys known anything about this series previously?
No, I knew nothing going in.
My daughter's a fan of the anime. So I've heard a little bit about it, knew it was out there, knew it existed, and more importantly, had somebody I could ask questions to. Because at times, it's like any movie. You got a whole lot of story you're trying to cram into 2 hours or less. You mention something and move on, and she could help kind of explain things like the Quincy, what that means to me a little bit better, sort of explain the concept of the Soul Reapers and the Soul Society and stuff. So it was kind of nice to have a reference I could use.
Little ace in the back pocket there to be like, what is this talking about? Dad, you are so dumb. Here's the real stuff.
She did say she watched 15 minutes or less of the live action movie and had to turn it off. And she's a big fan of the anime. So I tried to ask her exactly what was it she didn't like. And she said, well, the adaptation in a lot of ways was pretty spot on. But the problem is, and, I don't know about you guys, but I watched the dub version and she watched the dub versions of Bleach rather than the subs. And they have the exact same voice actor. The guy's name is escaping me right now. I know I've got it down somewhere. Johnny Young Bosch is the voice actor for Ichigo in the anime. And he's also the voice actor for the dub of the live action movie. And that was really sort of disjointing or discomforting to hear the cartoon voice coming out of a guy that, it didn't belong to in the live action movie.
I could see that, but honestly, to me, that's what really made this, because a lot of times I'll watch with the original, dialogue track and read subs and stuff, and that's fine. But I was, for this one, I was like, well, let's see, number one, how good the dub is, and number two, that's probably how the majority of people, at least in the United States here, will end up watching this. And when I was listening to the first couple minutes of the dub, I was like, holy smokes, this is actually really good. And it continues to be good throughout. And finding out later that it was the people from the anime that were doing, a handful of the voices, of the main characters and whatnot, I was like, that makes a lot of sense because it feels like these people are invested in what they're doing here instead of just the regular. I mean, like when we watched the Russian Avengers there, whatever the heck we called it, Guardians.
Yeah, Guardians.
It sounded, that dub was absolutely atrocious, and it felt like no one was in here. This felt like, oh man, these the people that are behind, the microphones here are acting just as much as the people on screen, and it really, really shows.
And I don't know exactly what I did to my settings on Netflix, but ever since Super Lopez, I get simultaneously sub and dub.
Huh.
So I'm listening to the dub while I'm also reading the subtitles. And it is, I noticed changes here and there where they didn't line up on Super Lopez, but on this one, the sub and the dub is almost never verbatim the same thing. And I'm going to say I like the phrasing choices and the word choices better on the dub than the sub.
Interesting.
Which is, kind of a less popular approach to take. But I like
that's pretty rare.
There were significant word choice differences, and I just think it worked better on the dub than on the sub.
So I didn't know anything about this, and to be frank about this, I am not well versed in anime. I don't know very much about it. In college I watched Akira and things like that, but I don't know much about it. However, my daughter, Artsy Fartsy, she loves anime, loves it, and she is very, very well versed in it. And so this week, in an attempt to be like, hey, look at what I'm doing, I talked to her about it, and immediately she's like, oh, actually, her exact words were, ew.
She doesn't like Bleach, huh?
She doesn't, and she said, I don't like the anime, so I didn't even bother trying to watch the live action because it's so rare when they get it correct. And I don't think that this movie is made for me. I was so bored watching this thing, and I get why people like it. I get why people love it. I get it's so stylized. And it is its own kind of thing. It's just not my kind of thing. And whenever, the way that my brain works, for some reason, I am willing to give a foreign film more of a chance than I would an American movie, just because it's the way that I'm wired for some reason. And I find a lot of foreign films more charming than I would an American movie. And so I was going into it open-minded, and especially because it's an Adam pick, and Adam has been, for me, with his picks so far, just nailing it, where I'm like, oh man, this is so surprising how much I like this. For me, this is the first time where I felt like, oh, this is just not this is not for me. And so, watching it throughout, this is the first time I've had to do this in a long time. I would have to stop watching and go do something else because I would just wander off, like I wouldn't be paying attention as I was watching it. And I go, man, you didn't take in any of that. You need to stop and go do something else and then come back to it. I had to do it 3 different times watching this. So I'm not saying that it's a terrible movie. I'm saying that this is a bad movie for me just because it's not my type of thing. It's far more Transformers than Marvel, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you've hit on something that I didn't quite find a way to put into words when you say more Transformers than Marvel. I was, just wanted to say that the concept should be can't lose for me. I mean, you're fighting ghost monsters with samurai swords. Like there should be no way you could make that not interesting to me. But I watched the movie and I don't quite get it. Like, I don't get the appeal. Like, I don't think it's bad. I just don't get the appeal. And maybe there's not as much appeal as I think with Bleach. And I don't have any like viewership numbers to back it up or anything. But when it comes to American fandom of anime, I think if you're being real technical, Pokemon is probably number one because everybody watches it as a kid. A whole lot of people take it with them to their adulthood. A ton of folks now have nostalgia for it. So even though you don't think of that as hard anime, I mean, that's probably the most watched and the longest running. Right behind that, I would say Naruto. And then right behind that, I would say Bleach, like top 3. And, I'm not seeing the appeal here with the movie. Maybe it'd be different with the anime. But one thought I have, which kind of dovetails, I think, into what you said, closer to Transformers than to Marvel, is that I think Bleach, the writer and the artist, is the same person, which is not at all uncommon with manga, but it's also not exclusively how it's done either. And this clearly, to me, when I'm watching the story and thinking about like the mythos behind it versus the monsters that they're fighting, this is an artist driven story. This is a visual driven story and not a words driven story, so to speak.
It's an
and
image comic.
See that, and I can see why that might,
It's an image comic from the 90s.
Well,
yes,
yeah,
man,
exactly.
I was about to make that same exact comparison, Adam.
And that's what I would say about the Transformers movies that's different between those and Marvel. It's like Marvel, the movies are written first and storyboarded second, but I feel like those Transformers movies are storyboarded first and written second, if I can be facetious. And I feel like just even reading about Kubo's process, sometimes when he would get his version of writer's block, he would just start drawing new characters and he would draw scenes and then later figure out how they work. And maybe that's part of the appeal is some people are really drawn into the visuals, particularly when you have to deal with the language lost in translation concept of it's very story driven, but this is nice and flashy and you watch big fights and that could be fun. But yeah, I'm watching this and I'm thinking the whole time, and I'm not putting it into words as succinctly as you did, Sean, but I'm thinking this is all about pictures and make a story so that the pictures, you have a little bit of a reason for looking at the pictures, but it's all about the pictures and not about the story.
When we watched Initial D, which is the biggest comparison I can make, there are things in Initial D that just out and out surprised me. And that's what I like when watching something out of my element, is that I do get surprised by these things. And Initial D had that in spades. Whereas with this movie, I guessed everything that was going to happen in it from the very beginning. And that's a bummer. I can do that with anything,
And it's about a property where when you're going to buy this week's story in Shonen Jump or whatever manga collection it was published in, you're buying it to see what the hollow of the week looks like the big creepy, it's all about what's the concept for the big creepy ghost monster that Ichigo's going to fight this week. And, there's absolutely a room for that kind of storytelling. But as we've gotten to the point where we watch at least one comic book adaptation a week for 6-7 years now, we've gotten to the point where that's not quite enough just to see some cool monsters.
Yeah, and you know, I understand the appeal of that gigantic sword that he has, and it was the second that he turns around when he gets the Reaper power. I was immediately out, like immediately. It felt like Rob Liefeld to use Adam's.
Oh yeah, and Adam, tell me if you're with me on this. Ichigo has quite the sword, but he's got nothing on Cloud, right?
Yeah, that's was always my thought. It was just like, oh, this is like in the world of like crazy anime swords. This is like a medium. That's a medium. That's a medium sized sword.
Of a combination of generational and your area of interest, but I mean the oversized sword is kind of a mainstay in manga and anime.
And the best part is people cosplay as it and bring their giant flipping swords to everything and block all the stuff and just hit everything with it. Listen, I love the effort. Don't get me wrong, but my God, just get it together, people.
And here's something I want you guys to think about. Maybe we can talk about some specifics of this movie, but while we're doing that, keep in mind how many manga adaptations we've covered. We've covered Ghost in the Shell, Alita Battle Angel. We covered Lone Wolf and Cub. We covered Initial D, and then we've covered Bleach. So that's like, I think this is only the fifth one. So just in the back of your head, kind of think of that in comparison to some of those other movies to give us some points to compare and contrast. And then maybe when we're giving it our Robin rating at this point, 5 deep, we can kind of think of it as a relative manga adaptation rating too.
Yeah, it's trying to get into it. And what's interesting to me is that I don't know if you guys have looked or not, but I was astounded when I found out what the budget for this thing was. $3.6 million.
What?
That's it. This thing looks spectacular. For that kind of money,
suffered on this movie as well.
It had to be. There must have been some kind of like no one gets paid until we go home kind of thing. I don't know because for what this movie costs, it looks unbelievable.
Too.
Yeah,
it's not like some shady production company that may have done that Guardians movie that maybe did keep their budget down by using some less ethical ways of getting the work done.
Yeah.
But here we're dealing with Warner Brothers in Japan. So, I mean, they just probably had, I'm imagining their CGI budget. They got great CGI for relatively low budget because maybe it's just less expensive there. Maybe they got some huge tax incentive, like to offset the cost of the CGI work or something.
Because the CGI work is for this budget and everything is unbelievably spectacular.
Yeah, it's crazy
it's
good.
So
are you saying that the Japanese movie might have slightly better CGI than the Russian movie?
Just a wee bit, man, because there's awesome, like, it's stuff that's happening in broad daylight, which is not where CGI tends to shine. You usually want to get that in kind of dark stuff, and even their dark stuff looks good, but man, when you're out in broad daylight and you've got just all of the right lighting going on, that's a tough thing to do, especially when you have a budget that's this low.
And I don't know, maybe I can talk about a little bit of a snake eating its own tail kind of moment, but I felt like this movie was somewhat influenced by Scott Pilgrim, the way that it did a few things with like the title cards for some characters, the way some of the cutscenes worked when they would introduce new characters of significance. I felt a little bit of Scott Pilgrim versus the World in terms of the way this movie was made. And then, of course, the comic Scott Pilgrim versus the World, heavily influenced by the world of manga. You know, Canadian comic, but absolutely influenced by manga.
It would have been fun if they would have
eaten its own tail here.
If they
you also don't have even remotely the craft of Edgar Wright, though. I mean,
you also don't have a cast that we're nearly as comfortable or familiar with either.
Right.
Yeah, and a budget that's probably 5 times the size as well. But I mean, and again, you wouldn't know it by looking at this movie that it cost, $3.6 million.
No, it looks great. It really does.
But the head scratcher,
if this is your jam, this was done well.
The head scratcher is the worldwide gross for this is $3.7 million.
That sounds wrong.
It's got to be,
that
right?
Sounds like it made more than that in Japan. So I think that's the outside Japan gross that you're reading or something.
That makes sense.
Well, it just says Japan made 1.2, or at least,
okay.
That was their opening weekend. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, because I read that it made about $3 million in Japan, but it only opened at number 4 in Japan.
Wow.
Which I don't know how the Japanese box office compares to the U.S. box office, but you open number 4, you should have just went straight to video here. That's kind of the attitude, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but at the same time, too, and this is why, just comparison for American here, that's why Jason Blum is just as successful as he is, because his movies cost less than $10 million, which this movie clearly did. All they have to do is spend one weekend at the box office, and even if they're in third or fourth place, they're in the black. And that's why it confounds me, because this thing does not look cheap or, junky or anything. Why not release this into the U.S.? I mean, obviously it's on Netflix right now, and that feels like there's some sort of partnership in order to get that. And I'm sure they get some sort of, money for it in one way or another. But if you'd have put this out in just, 1,000 theaters, you'd have made that money. You'd made probably $8-9 million in a 3-week run.
And we see movies like this. I'm going to even lump in the Guardians movie here because the story wasn't great. I think that might have been its downfall, but also its saving grace. But I'm just going to say, and I'm not saying that every movie needs to be $5 million bucks or less, but this might be an uncomfortable question to ask you guys. But do you think Hollywood spends too much on movies?
Yes. 100% yes.
I feel like we lose really good stories because it's such a huge investment and they can't afford to, you could make $300 million and be a financial loss, which takes a lot of people going to see a movie to make $300 million.
Mm-hmm. And, we get this big flare from, like I said, from people like Blumhouse where, The Invisible Man costs, $8 million to make. And it winds up making 40-50. It's crazy, but they rely on the skill of the movie maker and not the giant budget and the wham bam everything going nuts.
And it's not just the fact that Avengers probably cost over $300 million to make. It's also the fact that even a movie like Joker cost 80-90 million, which is not a lot for a superhero movie, and it was massively profitable, made over $1 billion. But you can't tell me that you couldn't make pretty much the same movie for less than $90 million.
Yeah, you could. I mean, even if you did it, you could do that for 15 or less, really. But
I
still
believe
keeping
Blumhouse
Hollywood
good. I mean, how much was Invisible Woman?
Yeah, I think it was it's under 9 million. Pretty much every one of his films is under 9 million, 9 or 10.
And I think that it's just like one microcosm of the business environment in the U.S. and Europe as a whole is that just spend more thinking there's always more to make. And then we get this recent issue where movie theater chains are shut down for a couple of months and they may never reopen. And then you start to look at maybe this whole system would have been more sustainable if the movies didn't have to bring in some ungodly amount to even have money to share, Yeah.
100% agree on that. I mean, and here's the thing. If you took this movie, if you took Bleach and said, we're going to give you 3 times the budget, do you think it'd be 3 times the movie? I don't know where they could really, as far as from an aesthetic standpoint, I don't know where they could improve that much.
Oh, and also getting back to that box office total, what I looked at, what did you have, 4.4 million?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so the Japanese total was the worldwide total, basically, because Netflix got the rights outside Japan. So that's why there's no box office other than Japanese. So I apologize for thinking that number was off because I didn't have all the information.
And IMDb only gives you a snippet of stuff, and they go, oh, you'd like to know the rest of that? Go out someplace else and find it because you get no quarter here.
Yeah, I think it showed on one screen one day in the U.S. as part of a festival, Japanese film festival sort of thing, and then straight to Netflix.
That feels right. Now,
man, if I was into this kind of thing, that would be the most fun thing ever. Going to a festival with all this style of movie, that is an import, and man, it would just be the best.
If you're into it. Now, at the same time, too...
I mean, that's the caveat. There would be no worse film festival for me to go to, except for maybe a Bollywood.
Yeah, I went to a Bollywood film festival, 24 hours straight, and they showed 3 movies. Because you go into those movies a young man, you come out an old
Man,
guy.
I am
Those
just
are
not a
long.
fan. I am not a fan.
They
Well, they're very long.
they used to run some Bollywood movies at my theater, and they were just like, it's not worth the effort, because they would have just these great big Indian audiences who would love being there, but part of the culture of all that is just jacking the place up. You're throwing stuff everywhere. It is the most absolute crazy bonkers party. They just have a time of it. So they were just like, it would take us 2 hours to clean the theater once they were done. They were just they were just living it up way too much.
I'm not exaggerating when I say it's not uncommon for the runtime to be 3.5, 4 hours on a Bollywood production.
Oh yeah,
Man.
for sure.
Yeah, so it means like half the screenings too when you show it.
But I loved all the characters in this. It felt like everybody had a very, distinct character for themselves. I love his little sisters, how they both kind of sound like 40-year-old women.
Yes.
They're just
I
a
would
lot
say
of
to you
fun.
that they're not characters, that they're caricatures. Everyone is a caricature.
Oh, for sure.
That's one of the big criticisms going all the way back to the manga. In the manga, in the anime, and I think it's true in this movie as well. But yeah, 100% I agree with that.
But our hero is like, I don't know, I find him to be kind of fun, the reluctant style of hero and everything, coming in and just trying to battle out, crazy demon night monsters. I had fun with the movie. I can't tell you why. I actually went in with a fairly low expectation, and maybe that was why I had as much fun with it as I did. Is I was just like, all right, it's going to be, okay. I pictured it as probably on a Guardians level.
I felt like they needed either less world building or more world building. Like, I feel like they came to this uncomfortable middle ground where it's like they're throwing a lot of terms out there, but they're not explaining it very well. And I could either go with, hey, let's just accept it that this is a dude who has to fight ghost monsters, or we're going to explore the mythos of this hidden world of the Soul Reapers. But it really did feel like one of those crammed too much into one movie. I mean,
that's excellent point. That's an excellent point, Bruce, because that is kind of the problem with this, is that you have this big world, but it's not that big because you have 4 different people in the same high school who are all part of this secret society. If you're going to make something this stylized, then go stylized all the way. And it's like half measures.
I asked my daughter about it, and she tells me, like, Chad, the character Chad, big deal in the anime because they have multiple seasons to develop the guy. And he kind of has his own superpower where he can manipulate spiritual particles, and he like turns his arm into a big shield, which they kind of hint at when he's somehow supernaturally strong to hold up a restaurant sign and protect people. But we don't know, like, is Chad a friend? Is Chad just a guy? I mean, with the name Chad, if he's not a good guy, obviously not a good guy, you're going to assume he's a bad guy. Right. And then also she explains the Quincy's were humans who used to do the job of the Reapers, because the Reapers, they felt, were letting them down. The Reapers were offended by that. So the Reapers started a war with the humans that were the Quincy's. And like there's an interesting story there and a reason for that animosity. But this guy just pops up. I'm a Quincy. We're at war with the Reapers. And I shoot an arrow, and then they move on past it. And this is going to come as, maybe some people are going to interpret this as maybe a bigger insult than it's intended to be for either movie I'm going to mention. But I would compare the world building problems here with those in the live action Last Airbender movie.
Oof, that's rough.
Hey, nothing that bad,
rough
man.
comparison.
Come on.
There's certain aspects to this, like Adam, I know that you were praising the dub for this, and I know that the voice comes from the animated, but the voices for these characters, they're supposed to be high school aged, yet 40-year-old people are doing the voices for these characters, and I did find that off-putting. Where like this guy is clearly the voiceover guy is clearly like 40 years old, who's doing the voice for this teenage boy, and for every teenage boy. where the voice work doesn't match the person, which again, if that is the style you're choosing, go all the way with it instead of what you're doing.
No, I could see that. But, I mean, at the same time, like, talking about both of those things, I mean, for me, it was like it ended up being part of the, for lack of a better word, kitsch of the whole thing.
Sure.
Was that, and with the all the other extra information and stuff that's in there, for me, it felt like very Star Trek-esque, where you're just like, oh, it's the such and such and the bloop-de-bloop. Okay, well, there you go.
And Johnny Bosch, 42 years old when he's doing that voiceover. So you're absolutely dead on with the guy in his 40s. Here's another thing I'm going to mention.
That should be some kind of
name is Johnny Bosch?
Johnny Young Bosch. Yeah.
Man, what a great name.
From Kansas City, Missouri.
Great.
You should like work at a fair where that's what you do is you close your eyes and then someone says something and you guess their age by their voice.
I love that.
That's unfair because there'd be ringers where there's like transgender folk and like I could never guess what their age.
Somebody
is,
puts up, then Michael Winslow shows up.
Dream come true.
I'm walking home with that big bear.
Oh man, just imagine Tay Zonday. You can't see him, you just hear the voice trying to guess that age.
Is that Darth Vader?
Here's something else, guys. Something else. Most of the Japanese movies that we've watched, and also the manga and anime that inspired this movie, all have a lot of humor infused. Now, sometimes the humor might be lost in translation. Sometimes the humor may seem insensitive by modern standards, but there's always a lot of humor thrown in. I felt like that was not here like I would have expected.
Yeah, I agree. The part of the culture here that I just don't understand is so that the father, can we get into the father for a minute? The father constantly is like punching and slapping the son. Yeah. Is that just part of the culture or is that specific to the two movies we've seen?
I'm just going to have to plead the fifth, but I'm going to say if all I knew about father-son relationships in Japan were Initial D and Bleach, I would think that it was an atrocious thing.
Dads drink a lot and smack their kids around a little bit, but listen, I can understand both.
Of course, it's probably because those dads all grew up idolizing Bender's father from the Breakfast Club when they were kids, and they think it's being American to do that.
And I got to bring this up. So, Ichigo, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Better than me.
I'm a shoe guy, and so I'm always looking at characters' shoes. He has the smallest little black shoes in this movie where I just find it off-putting. It's almost like he's wearing socks. And so I just found that a little bit weird. And I'm not talking about when he's in, he's got the big sword and the robe on. I'm talking about just like where he's wearing his cool little school uniform and stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
he's got these little tiny shoes on, like the smallest shoes I've ever seen.
One thing I got to ask ourselves, though, is based on the knowledge that I picked up from Tokyo Drift, when you go to school, you got to take your outside shoes off and wear your slippers inside.
Well,
so maybe those are his inside slippers that you're seeing.
No. I mean, he's outside. He's on the street when he's wearing them.
Hey, here's all I say. He's playing lawyer ball.
They
say I can't wear my outside shoes inside, but don't say nothing about wearing my inside shoes outside. So then they're my all the time shoes.
Just tiny little black shoes he's got on. Also, can we talk about the set dressing in this movie?
Oh
Please.
My goodness! I think I know where you're going, but please go right ahead.
No. You go ahead, and I'll bring the thunder.
Okay, because the biggest thing that I thought is like, listen, I'm a fan of Bad Religion as well, but
that's what I was going to say.
Must they be all the posters that you have in your room? Oh my goodness!
Okay, I made lots of rock and roll jokes when I was talking about the comic book connection. Kubo did very specifically say that he always intended for Bad Religion to be the soundtrack of his manga.
They put that into the nth degree here in his room, boy, because
you know what
every wall
cool,
is
though?
covered.
You know what might have been cool though? An actual Bad Religion song, but I'll just leave that out there.
Brad Gertz was like, listen, man, I don't know about all of that. That's more Warner Brothers.
We'll get to the music in a second because I have a note on that as well. But
I think I know where you're going there as well.
The Bad Religion stuff, you've got all of these posters in the main character's room, in Ichigo's room. And that's fine because, ever since Ferris Bueller, that is just what everyone does.
Yeah.
To all the main character sets, and that's fine. The problem I have is when they ran out of posters, and so they had 2 T-shirts on hangers just pinned to the wall.
I mean, like,
that is an issue. Now we have a problem.
You don't think he might like Black Flag too? Maybe just put something else up there.
Oh man, I love that. That's seems like the weird kind of way I would have decorated my wall. I don't have any posters, but I got a lot of T-shirts. So I'm just going to thumbtack them to the wall.
I mean, just terrible. Now I know why they only spent $3.5 million on this movie because they weren't spending it on set dressing.
Nope.
Now,
and we got to get into the music here. Adam, you are the audio guy.
Yeah.
What say you?
I like while watching this entire movie, I was like, God, I really want a glass of milk. I don't know why. I think the National Dairy Council
the actual song is all you got to do is drink all your milk. All you got to do was drink all your milk.
It's pretty ridiculous, but great.
It is awful. It is awful.
It's so much fun. It's just like, why?
Did they go to the high school talent show?
It's so good.
Pick up their music for the soundtrack.
Oh no, man! It's Alejandros. Are you not or Alexandros? It's the huge band, according to Wikipedia, from Tokyo. They were the biggest thing in Tokyo in March 2014.
Oh.
And that song you're referring to, guess what it's called?
Drink all your milk.
I gotta guess.
It's Milk.
Just milk. Okay. All right. Well,
it's their big hit song is Mosquito Bite, which I'm gonna have to check out.
That is actually better because I just thought they were using all of Mr. T's catchphrases for music.
Well, they do have a song, I Pity the Fool, No Jibba Jabba. No, I'm making those up.
I did like, but speaking of sound though, like that giant monster coming through with the big growly voice and the booming feet on there. My home theater was rocking with that, and like that drove up the level of excitement for me. And maybe another reason why I like this a little bit more was because the soundtrack is like, as far as from a sound perspective goes, is really fantastic. The song is silly, but at the same time too, by the third time they use it, it's kind of fun. Where you're just like, "Oh, this stupid crap
again!"
It's
my favorite song from the soundtrack.
Drink all your milk.
All you got to do is drink all your milk.
I don't know.
Oh man! So just search "Milk Bleach movie" on YouTube if anybody wants to hear this hit song and you're not familiar with it.
But yeah, listen, he was good. I like the Rukia character. I thought she was great. I'm so happy that they didn't try to force some sort of, love relationship or anything with them.
That is nice.
I was just like, oh, thank heavens that we're not going
There's
into
no
that
triangle.
Because I'm just going to shoehorn a thought in, building off of that. Like, if this were an American movie, a high school boy has an attractive girl living in his closet, that's the whole movie. Like, you don't have no time for swords and ghosts if you got that movie.
No, and their fighting was really great. All the fight choreography in this movie actually was pretty on point. Another thing I was very surprised about. Cool fights. All right.
Here's what I did like. I did like the cool fights. I didn't like that they halfway did world building. Like, I'd rather just make it simple. A guy has to fight ghost monsters to save his family, or else let's get into this mythos, sort of John Wick style.
Well, you got to admit though, it feels like they wanted to have a couple of flicks within this kind of universe.
Yeah,
for
this
sure.
is definitely.
I think they did, but at the same time, they tried to make it deep enough in the story. So if there isn't another movie, this has too much of the story than it needed to have, I guess.
Yeah, at least it comes to a conclusion.
A big part that would bother me though, if this was launching a franchise, which clearly they want to do. I mean, it's an ongoing anime and manga that's got lots and lots of story to tell. But if they want to launch a franchise, me personally, I feel like I don't really know where anybody stands at the end of this movie. And I think it's important to have a feeling of where people stand at the end of one movie before you go into the next, unless it's one of those final installments broken in half.
Well, I guess at the end for me, it was just like everybody's kind of forgotten about something, but he sees like a little remnant of what had gone past, and he kind of gives a little half smile there. So it feels like there's something buried within him that kind of sort of knows what went on.
Is he still a Reaper?
Technically, I don't think so.
Exactly. Like you say, technically, I don't think so.
Well,
like,
here's
I need to know, is it happen where he's like, okay, now I am accepted as an outlier in the Reaper family, or am I turning my back on being the Reapers forever? Will I never speak to these people again, or am I now very close friends with them? You know, it's like I really don't feel like I know where anything stands. Like, I know he defeated the Great Fisher, the Grand Fisher, whatever that ghost is called, and it kind of loops back to his childhood, but I still don't know, like, is that just another Hollow that he killed, or is there some significance to killing that one? Like, at one point I wasn't entirely sure if he lived through the final fight or not until, you see the little epilogue.
Yeah, and you're right. It does feel like there's a lot of this that if you were a fan of the manga or the anime, that you might be able to fill in more of the gaps and stuff for sure. So I think having not known that, it does kind of leave you a little bit more in the dark.
And from the best I can tell, the original creator, Titi Kubo, when he was asked about the live action film, the only thing he cared about was Ichigo's hair color. Like that's it. He didn't care about anything else, what else they did. He said that he didn't know if orange hair would look very good in live action. It'd be strange. So I don't know what they're going to do. And then that was the end of his input. It was like,
but at the end of the day, it's like, dude, that hair color's been done in film with with Asian actors and stuff forever and a day. So
yeah, but have you seen the anime hair color? It's just straight up orange.
Yeah, it's super that. But at the same time,
they told him the hair was going to be orange, and I guess he was thinking like clown wig orange or something, but it wasn't.
No, they made him look like a normal human being that just colored his hair. So okay, what did you think it was going to be? A fright wig?
But I guess when I read that statement,
Laugh
and
row.
maybe Kubo's just like the coolest, most laid back guy in the world, and he's hands off. But it kind of tells me like he doesn't really have like much more of an attachment to it, other than he just enjoys drawing the pictures, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
But it's like he's probably, he's done stuff before this. He's, did some kind of like zombie story before this. I'm sure he's doing stuff now that's not this, and it's like, yeah, whatever. This is one thing. Yeah, the hair. It's going to be tough to do that hair. Have fun. And then move on.
Well, see, that's also why they call it bleach, though, because if you bleached his regular hair color and just didn't go all the way with it, it would end up looking like that. Source,
Yeah.
I've done that. So,
and that is one of my many conspiracy theories on why this is called Bleach.
there you go. So,
I still don't buy his story that I was going to call it black, and then I said, no, let's call it white. No, let's call it bleach. End of story. Like the guy's either the coolest guy or the most annoying guy ever, and the fact that I don't know which makes him awesome.
I was about to say, that puts you in the cool category when you can't tell if somebody's being cool or not on purpose. Speaking of being cool on purpose, we have to ask ourselves before we get to our rating, then one of the most important things in the world is how this movie relates back to Sylvester Stallone.
Well, thank you, Adam Portress. I have a prepared statement. Jan Holzer is listed as this film's orchestral recording engineer. Born in Prague, he's become the go-to guy for big-budget movies internationally, with over 438 credits to his resume. Jan Holzner has won 2 Grammys, one regular Grammy for Album of the Year, and a Latin Grammy, which is like a regular Grammy but spicy. And in full disclosure, I didn't know there was such a job as orchestral recording engineer, but it would make sense. And if there's one guy I know who would know who's good at the job and who isn't, it's my fellow row boy and healthy, totally dateable podcaster now, Adam Portress. Adam, good job on the weight loss, sir.
Thank you. We're still a work in progress, but we're doing it.
You look great. I saw that video. You look great.
Thanks.
I'm not sure when the transition happened with Adam, but he went from dude who can talk about something for hours without actually saying anything to dude who has become a total technocrat and my go-to guy when I hit a compatibility wall. Adam might not know the name of the guy who works with the boops and the beeps, but he does know when the boops and the beeps sound wrong. And Adam, I, for one, welcome this new age where Adam has purpose. Now, all we have to do is get you a career where you make some pretty good money and work on your terrible personality, and you're going to be good to go.
Hey, one step at a time, man. Slow that.
But I have not come before you today to roast Adam Portress, for I have come to praise him. Adam, you're doing one hell of a job. You're doing the work, and I can't speak for anyone else, but I've noticed. Good job by you.
Yeah, thank you.
As stated earlier, Jan Holzner has 438 credits to his filmography, but only one of them stars Sylvester Stallone. That movie, The Expendables, the first one, the good one maybe? It's the only one I've ever seen, and if you've never seen it, it is exactly what you think it is. Old guys trying to look tough and trying to be cool. And Jan Holzner, incredible. And there's your Stallone connection this week, Dingalingers. Jan Holzner. I'm Sweet Shanzi. You're welcome, podcast listener.
Yes, my name is Jan, and it's very, very good. So good for me. And you know what else is good? Is the Robin rating system, yeah? I don't know why I'm doing that voice. If you'd like to check that out, head on over to facebook.com/HearMoviePodcast. It's right there at the top of the screen. Bruce, where does Bleach from 2018 fall on the Robin rating system for you?
I'm kind of lukewarm on the movie, which I wasn't expecting. I thought I'd feel strongly, like either love it because it's samurai swords versus ghost monsters, like I said, or, kind of rag on it for being a bad adaptation or something. And it's just like in this middle range where I can't be too hard on it, but also I wouldn't really recommend it either. But because the visuals, I think there's enough there to give this a Damian Wayne. But it's like a Damian Wayne where I had to debate whether to go Stephanie Brown or Damian Wayne. So I'm going Damian Wayne.
Okay. Sean, what you got?
It pains me to say this because you had one hell of a run, Adam Portress. But I've got to give it a Stephanie Brown. I had no fun watching this. And I wanted to. I was completely and utterly open-minded to this. And I just didn't enjoy the experience. So Stephanie Brown for me.
Fair enough. I'm going the highest here. For me, this was a Tim Drake. I can't believe I had as much fun as I did with it. Like I said, for me, a lot of it was that kind of attitude that you give Star Trek, where it's like, oh, here's the thing and the thing and the thing. Who cares? Whatever. And you go along with it. And I thought I guess maybe my expectations were so low, but to see this movie look as good as it did, move as quick and as fun as it did, I just had a good time with it. So Tim Drake for me. That is it, everybody. We got some interesting scores there. What say you? If you've seen Bleach and you have any opinion on it one way or another, email us at heromoviepodcast@gmail.com. We'd like to read that. It'd be fun. And if you don't do that, for heaven's sake, at least go over to the iTunes, drop us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger. We'd really appreciate that. And again, big giant thank you to everyone who supports the show over at patreon.com/HMP. Get there now, man. Fast and Furious. We're at movie number 2. We're going to do all of them, man. It's going to be a crazy time. So check that out. Patreon.com/HMP. Next week, we have a very interesting thing because we're letting Bruce have the reins this time. Sean had it last week. I've got it this week. Now it's in Bruce's hands. Bruce, the power has been bestowed to you, sir. What shall you do with this power?
I'd like us to review Dick Tracy next week.
All right. Dick Tracy it is. And, what's going to be different about it?
Well, maybe, just maybe, if he's available, Matt_Boyd_Smith will be sitting in for me next week.
So, Bruce gets the chance to open up the floodgates of HMP and do whatever he wants, and he says, I'd like a week off, please. Give it to someone else. Can't blame him. He's got a lot of stuff to do. Me and Sean have been sitting around the house doing a lot of stuff, in our own lives. So we gotta let Bruce take a breather every now and then. So we'll come back next week with a little bit of Dick Tracy action for you kids. How's that sound? In the meantime, we'll start with Sean. Where can we find more of your work on the internet?
Why don't you go find us on Snowpiercer 30 Questions, where each week we review the show Snowpiercer on TNT, and we come up with 30 questions about that TV show. And it is strangely a fascinating watch. It's one of those shows where you don't think you're going to like it. Maybe you don't, but it is definitely something that you should check out.
Yeah, it's super curious because I did not know what to expect going in, and every week I'm kind of more excited that we're doing that show because it's becoming something very interesting to wait for every single week. And yeah, check that out, Snowpiercer 30 Questions, wherever you find finer podcasts. Bruce, what about you?
I'm just taking a pass this week.
He's passing, everybody, and I won't pass up the opportunity to say check out Mandalorian 30 Questions. I've been watching those behind-the-scenes things on Disney, and I feel like I want to go through Mandalorian one more time just before Season 2 comes out in October, everybody. So get on top of that.
In the Redford administration, see, I said I was going to take a pass, and then I just thought, you know what? Last night I rewatched for Episode 1 of Watchmen. It's a good rewatch. Go do that, folks.
Yeah, gosh,
nice.
man. Can I say something real quick though? Warner Brothers, whoever puts out that, for heaven's sake, why have you not put out a 4K Blu-ray of that and it's just a regular Blu-ray? What's wrong with you? I want to give you money. Let me give you money. Put it out on 4K. That is it, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking Dick Tracy for Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet. Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Porters. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie. Thank you for the bingo card.